Imagine if every judicial decision had a bloody price, and now the judges are the victims. This is the story of The Fatal Verdict, where the pursuit of justice turns into a deadly nightmare. Hit play and get ready to feel the terror in the courtroom. It was an ordinary day at the Supreme Court, where cases of high importance were being judged. The atmosphere was serious and solemn, with lawyers arguing and judges deliberating. However, few knew that an ancient curse was about to manifest, bringing terrible consequences for those in judicial power. The chief judge, Dr. Richard Sloan, was known for his integrity and impartiality. He had dedicated his life to ensuring justice prevailed, even in the most complicated cases. His reputation was impeccable, and he was respected by all his colleagues. That day, he was about to preside over one of the most controversial cases of his career, a trial involving a powerful drug cartel. As the case progressed, Dr. Sloan began to notice that something was wrong. He felt a dark and oppressive presence in the courtroom, as if invisible eyes were watching him. As the trial proceeded, strange events began to occur. Documents mysteriously disappeared, lights flickered for no reason, and audio equipment constantly failed. One night, while reviewing the case files in his office, Dr. Sloan found an old document that was not part of the case. It was an aged scroll, written in a language he couldn't decipher. However, at the bottom of the scroll there was a clear message: "Justice has a price, and now you must pay it." The next day, the assistant judge, Meredith Collins, was found dead in her chambers. The cause of death seemed to be a heart attack, but her body was covered in strange marks, as if it had been burned from the inside out. The news shook the Supreme Court, and everyone began to feel the weight of the curse. Dr. Sloan tried to warn his colleagues about the scroll, but many dismissed it as an unfortunate coincidence. However, some began to believe that something supernatural was at play. The deaths began to multiply. Judges, lawyers, and even stenographers began to disappear or die in inexplicable and horrific ways. The atmosphere in the Supreme Court became unbearable. Each judicial decision seemed to trigger a new bloody event. The judges were desperate, fearing that any verdict could be their last. Determined to uncover the truth, Dr. Sloan began investigating the origin of the curse. He discovered that centuries ago, the land where the Supreme Court was built had housed a secret tribunal where witches were judged and condemned to death. The witches, in their last breath, cast a curse on any court erected there, promising vengeance against those who sought justice on that cursed land. With this new information, Dr. Sloan knew he had to act quickly. He gathered the remaining judges and shared his findings. Together, they decided to perform a protection ritual to try to break the curse. However, the dark presence haunting the court grew stronger and more aggressive, determined to stop any attempt to undo the spell. On the night of the ritual, the judges gathered in the courtroom. They lit candles and began chanting protection spells, hoping to appease the vengeful spirits. As the ritual progressed, the temperature in the room dropped drastically, and shadows began to move along the walls. The judges felt an increasing pressure in their chests, as if an invisible hand was squeezing their hearts. Suddenly, the candles were extinguished by a gust of icy wind, and the room was plunged into total darkness. Dr. Sloan tried to continue chanting, but his voice was silenced by a terrifying scream that echoed through the court. The shadows took shape, revealing the condemned witches, their eyes filled with hatred and pain. The witches attacked the judges, dragging them into the shadows one by one. Dr. Sloan, fighting against the fear, tried to complete the ritual but was interrupted by one of the witches who held him with supernatural strength. "You can never undo what has been done," the witch whispered before casting a final spell on him. When the light finally returned, Dr. Sloan was alone in the courtroom, surrounded by the bodies of his colleagues. He felt that the curse had not been broken, but merely dormant. The witches had achieved their vengeance, and the price of justice had been paid in blood. Dr. Sloan knew that the Supreme Court would never be the same. Every future decision would be marked by terror and death. He left the court, carrying the weight of the curse on his shoulders, knowing that the witches' revenge was not yet over. With the disappearance of several judges and the inexplicable death of others, the Supreme Court became a place of fear and despair. No new judge wanted to take the position, and those remaining lived in constant fear of being the next victims. The court, which was once a symbol of justice, was now seen as a cursed place where evil awaited in the shadows. The story of The Fatal Verdict spread, and the legend of the vengeful witches became a dark warning to all who sought justice on that cursed land. With each new case, the survivors of the Supreme Court wondered who would be the next to pay the bloody price. The curse continued to haunt the court, and the pursuit of justice would never be the same. Want part 2 of this story? Leave it in the comments. If you have a horror story and want to see it published on our channel, send us your story.